This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradley above at the top of the screen and everything that we're talking about here today. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 5 things you need to know right now about XRP, I believe, that will lead it to a special designation. I really do believe this, and I want to share with you this information. So let me lay it out. Some you may have seen, and some you may have not. So make sure you stay with us till the end, because there's some pretty powerful stuff here that shows it all. Let's start with the recent news from the Ripple lawsuit and the fraud allegations that were dropped. Shout out to XRP Crypto Wolf for this and XRP Arcade. The plaintiff failed to prove how the 17 misstatements in their complaint were true. On October 2nd, the Honorable Judge Phyllis Hamilton reached a decision on Ripple's motion to dismiss fraud allegations. Let's just take a look at this. It's not that long to understand. It goes through the lawsuit, the amended complaint. The ruling is what we want to see. On October 2nd, the Honorable Judge Phyllis J. Hamilton reached a decision on Ripple's motion to dismiss these fraud allegations. Specifically, the court concluded that the plaintiffs failed to prove how the 17 alleged misstatements cited in their complaint were true, according to the judge. The motion to dismiss the 6th and 7th causes of action for violation in California business and professional codes with prejudice as to all defendants. However, the motion to dismiss the 4th cause of the action for predicate violation of California Corporation Code 25401 is denied. This means that the plaintiffs may proceed on that cause of action solely on the basis of Garlinghouse's alleged misrepresentations concerning the scope and character of his XRP holdings. According to the complaint, throughout 2017, Garlinghouse sold millions of XRP on various cryptocurrency exchanges while making statements that he was long XRP. Garlinghouse's statement in a December 14, 2017 interview were the following: I'm long XRP. I'm very, very long XRP as a percentage of my personal balance sheet. I am not long on some other digital assets because it is not clear to me what's the real utility. What problem are they really solving? If you're solving a real problem, if it's at scale, if it's a scaled problem, then I think you have a huge opportunity to continue to grow that. We have been really fortunate, obviously. I remain very, very, very long XRP. There is an expression in the industry, hodl instead of hold. It's hodl. I'm on the hodl side. So it sounds like to me, if they want to take issue with some of the millions that Brad Garlinghouse sold during that time, they can press on with that. We'll have to see what they choose to do. My thought and notion is that if Brad Garlinghouse didn't liquidate his entire portfolio for XRP, then you really don't have much of a case, to be honest with you, because if someone remained in the market and remained in a position with that asset, you got a pretty tough sell there as far as I'm concerned. So we will keep an eye on what goes on with that, but there has been huge news there to see the many other claims be dismissed. So on that particular claim, we shall see how far that goes to trial or not. So that's number 1, is to keep an eye on the class action lawsuit. Number 2, the SEC. The SEC put out September 25th here, the no action letter for security tokens and digital asset securities, and alternative trading systems that trade digital asset securities. So this was remarkable. And then the conversation deepened, because then we had the Digital Chamber of Commerce with Brian Brooks and Jay Clayton, and the chairman of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission is open to creating an efficient method for tokenizing an ETF product. According to Jay Clayton, the SEC, he says we got off on the wrong foot in this innovation. Let's just look quickly at the document, at the article here. The chairman, U.S. Securities Exchange Commission, is open to creating an efficient method for tokenizing ETFs. And he said they got off on the wrong foot. He says, we're willing to try that. Our door is wide open. If you want to show how to tokenize the ETF product in a way that adds efficiency, we want to meet with you. We want to facilitate that. Then he says down here, what we don't like is when someone says, the function is payments. Don't pretend that it's a payment system when it's actually a financing vehicle. Now, that's Jay Clayton just letting you know, don't try to pull a fast one on us because it ain't going to work out well for you. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He is not playing around. Clayton also said that the blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology, bring a new promise of efficiency. He noted that stock trading has already become fully electronic over the past 2 decades. Therefore, it may very well be the case that those all become tokenized, Clayton added. The entire stock market, tokenized. A 24, 7-day, 365 days a year stock market. Tokenized, the ability to buy fractional amounts of Apple stock, Amazon stock, Tesla stock, things of that nature. That is where we're going, and he is acknowledging this. I mean, if we think the crypto market's big now, imagine how big the crypto space is when security tokens are the largest part of this space. So, the SEC and tokenization of securities is a huge, huge piece to know about where we're going. That's number 2. Okay, so number 3, let's take a look here. Ripple wins U.S. patent for new Oracle-based smart contract design. Really? And what does this involve? Well, earlier this week, Ripple Labs received a patent for a smart contract that can use oracles to connect distributed platform to a variety of different real-world data. Originally filed in 2018, one example of a use case provided includes using the smart contracts to automatically settle options contracts. Did you just hear that? One example of a use case provided includes using smart contracts to automatically settle options contracts when pre-agreed conditions are met, such as a company's debt-to-equity ratio hitting a certain threshold. Here, listen to this example. Another example for the oil industry is feeding data on the density of a specific crude oil shipment to help a smart contract determine whether to make a trade. Whoa! Smart contracts are mostly associated with Ethereum, but other large blockchains are looking to add similar capabilities. Well, I tell you, it also says in this article, too, about the troubles that BitMEX is having, facing legal troubles, and Lucy got some explaining to do on that front. But the state of our points, one of the 2 authors of the patent, Ripple's former CTO, Stephen Thomas, previously revived a defunct project called Codius, one working to bring smart contracts to Ripple into a new startup. Okay, so here's what I'll say to this right here. You just got an example about how they could settle derivatives, because that's what derivatives are. They're contracts, right? Whether it's a trade from a stock or a trade from an option, as they just showed you, right? Whether it's settling all the oil market or all of the stock market, you really just heard them announce that they just won the patent to be able to do that. Yeah, that's a bit of a big deal. Might want to remember that one. That's number 3. Now, keep in mind that this has just happened at the same time that Jay Clayton is now suggesting we could tokenize the entire stock market and get a great ETF out here to add efficiency to the markets. Are you kidding me? Wow, the timing is incredible. Now, the next statement and the next point goes to this. We need to know about the XRP Ledger Foundation. And, well, we know about it. What we need to understand about it, I should say, rather, is that the XRP Ledger Foundation has recently become an independent nonprofit, right? It's recently launched, and now it's there. There is an independent nonprofit foundation for the XRP Ledger. Do you find that rather timely that now there is an independent nonprofit foundation for the XRP Ledger specifically, possibly to handle all of these tokenized stocks and equities and options and call puts and everything else and ETFs that exist? Do you think it might be for the reason that we're about to see all of that built and run on the XRP Ledger, and Ripple, the blockchain company, is not to have anything to do with it? If that, in fact, is true, and the XRP Ledger Independent Nonprofit Foundation is number 4. Number 4. So seeing that be developed, to me, creates this standalone entity behind the ledger that is not Ripple. And it can go on and do what it needs to do. Just like Ripple has created RippleNet, right? Cloud-based services platform with lots and lots of hundreds of partners to be able to participate in liquidity and settlement with governance and compliance built right in. So number 4 is the XRP Ledger Foundation that was recently built, which is nonprofit, independent, to stand behind the ledger without having to go to Ripple for any situation to deal with the ledger. It is no longer Ripple's baby. It is grown up and flying out of the nest. Number 5. Number 5 is the big one here, because number 5 comes down to comments, question, and I've been talking about FSOC, the Financial Stability Oversight Council. It is a regulatory agency connected directly to the Treasury. In this digital chamber of commerce that happened just 3 days ago with Brian Brooks and Jay Clayton, they are asked by the MC of this interview to address whether a level of attention be brought or remarks be made or recognized by something as heightened of a level of an agency as the FSOC. Listen here what is said. Listen very closely. And by the way, this will be the question coming in, and then you will hear from Jay Clayton first, who doesn't give a lot, and then Brian Brooks, who's going to lay it out. And then we're going to look at some other information here that is quite compelling.
Even before that, is do you see more cooperation ahead between your two agencies, and how do you see U.S. regulators kind of moving forward on a more coordinated approach? Does it have to be at kind of that FSOC level?
He's talking about another step above, isn't he? Does it have to be that FSOC level? Like, did we got to go one more step above here? Let's keep listening.
In addressing some of these issues, or as you guys mentioned, it can be an agency by agency basis as well. Jay, let me start with you, and then Brian.
Sure. And I think you outlined the answer, which is in some cases it's bilateral. We've done a lot of bilateral work, and that bilateral work will feed into work at the Presidential Working Group or at the FSOC or otherwise. There's no set structure for coordination. We have a lot of structures that facilitate coordination, but as things come up, look, Chairman Tarbert over at the CFTC and we have a standing call every Monday. Some days it's a half hour, some days it's 10 minutes. But where are we going to be better if we resolve things at that level quickly? So there's a lot more coordination. You see, we certainly don't announce every time we talk to each other. That would be quite cumbersome. But there's a lot of discussion.
Well, there's a lot of discussion, he says. That's all he's willing to let off.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay, so now let's get to what Brian Brooks says here. Listen very carefully to his words here.
absolutely right. I mean, I think that broadly over time, it would be good, in the same way that the government as a government has a policy on things like housing finance,
Broadly over time, just as the government has a housing finance. Listen to this.
It'll be good for the government to have a broad policy framework for this kind of stuff.
Whoa. He just acknowledged, yes, he believes that you will hear from someone like FSOC for this. Listen, and it would be a good idea for them to have a broad policy just like housing finance, right? Listen to this again. This is powerful what he's saying. Listen very carefully to his words here.
Absolutely right. I mean, I think that broadly over time, it would be good, in the same way that the government as a government has a policy on things like housing finance, it'll be good for the government to have a broad policy framework for this kind of stuff.
Well, in order to have that broad policy for this kind of stuff, as Brian Brooks is talking about here and hinting to, you're going to have to look at why is it so important? Because here is designations from the U.S. Department of Treasury, or FSOC. Okay, and this all comes from the Dodd-Frank Act. I've covered this many times. Don't hop off of this video if you've seen this from me before, because we're not done yet. Okay, now I'm going to take you down here to the meat of it. And the meat of it, to understand it, is this. And then we're going to take a look at some of these people companies that already are designated as systemically important financial market utilities, known as SIFMUs. So the Dodd-Frank Act authorizes the council to designate a financial market utility as systemically important if the council determines that the failure of or disruption to the functioning of the FMU create or increase the risk of significant liquidity or credit problems spreading among financial institutions or markets and thereby threaten the stability of the U.S. financial system. Designated FMUs will become subject to the heightened prudential and supervisory provisions of Title VIII, which promote robust risk management and safety and soundness, including conducting their operations in compliance with applicable risk management standards, providing advance notice and review of changes to their rules, procedures, and operations that could materially affect the nature or level of their risk, and subject to relevant examination and enforcement provisions. Now, coming down here, so this is what the power of FSOC can do. They could deem RippleNet, if they wanted to, as systemically important financial market utility or financial market infrastructure. The Clearinghouse Payments Company, LLC, on the basis of its role as an operator of the Clearinghouse Interbank Settlement System, is a SIFMU. And so is CLS, Bank International. Now, we know the Clearinghouse is a national payment system. We know CLS handles an enormous amount of settlement. And the Depository Trust Company, we know, is absolutely massive, doing a couple quadrillion plus a year in settlement of securities, right? All your stocks, all your bonds, right? All your trades is really going through the DTCC, and that's that. Now, let's take a look at just some of this, right? So if you remember, Ripple partner FIS and the Clearinghouse joined forces to bring real-time payments for U.S. Bank. So Ripple partner FIS and the Clearinghouse, which is, in fact, a SIFMU, a financial market utility, systemically important. Interesting. Ripple's partnered with FIS, who's partnered with a SIFMU. Isn't that interesting? Going all the way back to 2015 here, we see that it has been a conversation quite heavy here about the idea of the DTCC going to blockchain or distributed ledger technology. Naturally, other kinds of assets operate very differently from payments. In the case of securities, market participants have already agreed to an operator for settlement infrastructure in the U.S. The DTCC subsidiaries handle the settlement of treasuries, equities, corporate bonds, municipal bonds, and agency mortgage-backed securities, among other types of assets. And by the way, former DTC CEO Don Donahue is a Ripple advisor. Well, I'll be damned. And DTCC is also a SIFMU. Given that an operational system to clear and settle securities is already in place, changing post-trade processes can come at enormous cost to both the industry and to the regulators. If that's the case, does moving to a blockchain system actually make sense, similar to our design goals for Ripple and supporting faster payments? A common pain point talked about in the context of securities is that U.S. equities take 3 days to settle, or T+3 blockchains, on the other hand, can adjust ownership in real time. So can't we get to real time by switching equity settlement to a blockchain? It says, unfortunately, it's a bit of a red herring to assume that a central counterparty is the main holdup here. While we don't intimately understand the internal systems of the DTCC, there's no logical reason that a central database can't adjust in real time. If anything, it should be easier to speed up a centralized system than a distributed one. Well, there's that. Now, let's keep going, because then in 2016, we have here, just to understand what we got here, for the first time, we're looking at 2016 now. We see the DTCC, or Depository Trust Clearing Company, is a predominant financial institution, manages the centralization, clearing, and settling of securities, which, by the way, has just been said from a no action letter as a reminder from the SEC that we can now create tokens for securities. No problem. Last week, two firms best known for going after the security settlement use case settlement took turns sharing limelight. First was R3 announced that they were experimenting with an iteration of Ethereum through Microsoft blockchain as a service platform in nearly a dozen banks. Later, digital asset holding company known as DAH announced Plum Series A, raising $52 million. And it's no wonder that R3 and DAH are jumping ahead first into the space in a huge way, as the DTC president at that time, Michael Bodson, noted in a press release accompanying the latest white paper. Industry has once-in-a-generation opportunity to reimagine and modernize its infrastructure to resolve long-standing operational challenge. Like I said, DTCC is also a SIFMU. It's remarkable what we're looking at here. The reality here for me is this. You see the connection. This is on Ripple Insights. Do you think they put this up here because they're not involved? They didn't put this up here because they're not. Hey, we wanted to just tell you what the advancements are on the DTCC, but, we're not involved. But we thought we'd throw it up on our website for everybody to see. I believe, FSOC level designation is going to be key for RippleNet, I believe, and potentially even encompass the ILP and possibly, or the XRP Ledger itself. And if the XRP Ledger has now recently got an independent foundation behind it, so now the decisions made are not coming from Ripple themselves. Ripple can just go on and IPO and be a blockchain infrastructure company. I believe we are now closer than we ever have been before, because remember, right now, why the price is the price is because of retail speculation, not because of utility. But everything we just talked about is massive utility. We're not going to see, I believe, any price move until we see utility driving that price. I just laid out to you quadrillions dollars worth of utility. What we need now, I believe, is a designation from the likes of something like FSOC and even the international level community from G20, G7, a regulatory agency connected thereof. I believe we need that designation to give us the clarity. And in fact, I believe that's why they stopped short after they gave Bitcoin and Ethereum their classification too. So That's going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe, leave a comment below, and don't forget to check the description box or the comment section for any links of anything that you may need while you're out here investing in this space. That's going to do it for me. I'll talk to you on the next one. Take care.